Hi there, I'm Josh Spurrell from Spurrell and Associates Chartered Professional Accountants, and this is episode 1 of Ask Spurrell CPA. And the issue that we're dealing with here is what I think is actually the most important issue for any small business owner. If there was only one that we could help people with, this would be the most important issue. And that issue is time blocking. And so today, who I have here to help me with this is Denise Mitra. So Denise is an associate here. So how long have you been here, Denise?
About 6.5 years.
6.5 years. So first employee, she was she's only been here a half a year less than me. Yes. So I guess the firm started, and 5 minutes later, Denise was here.
Yeah.
I think
that's
that's
right.
how it works. So yeah, thanks for being here today, Denise. Sure. That's excellent. So so what do you think, Denise? What are the things that are important about time blocking?
So Josh, what happens to business owners that don't time block?
So I really think that time blocking is the essence of a business owner's success. We've started to see it. We've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of clients come through the doors, and the owners who can make a schedule and stick to a schedule, and we see this because they make appointments with us, and the owners who meet those appointments, set the appointments, and keep them, they're the ones who succeed in their business. And the owners who, they're constantly rescheduling, they're the ones who are struggling. When we look at the financial reports for business owners who keep appointments generally do better than business owners that don't keep appointments. It's kind of the binary function. The correlation is extremely high. There's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. Maybe they don't want to come to the appointment because they know they're doing bad, but I think it's more than that. I think they're doing bad because they just have a history of not hitting their appointments and their time effectively.
So what about employees? What happens when the employees don't time block?
Yeah, it's very much the same thing. They're not as efficient, and especially as a business owner, you lose your ability to even lead or guide the employees because they're constantly, if they don't have a time block set up in their schedule, they constantly just have almost an excuse. I couldn't do what was assigned to me because this came up. But if there was a scheduled time to deal with this, then the assignment that you gave them could have actually been done.
Right.
We're working with a business owner now recently, and they have that same problem. They have a very high priority objective, and the business owner himself is very regimented, and he's able to execute on his schedule, but he's unable to get his employees to execute on the schedule this time because he's simply his employee is just getting pulled away in different directions, and they just don't have that clarity. It gives the employees the clarity to know it's okay to leave this until tomorrow because I'm scheduled to deal with this tomorrow. We won't not deal with it, but today I'm going to execute on the highest priority task that management or the business owner has given me.
Right. So what happens when you get interrupted?
Yeah, getting interrupted. I mean, the stats show that an interruption can take as much as 23 minutes to completely refocus on the task. And there's people who think, well, I'm a great multitasker. I can do two. But the evidence is kind of the contrary on that. The evidence shows that people don't multitask. And what's even funnier is the evidence shows is that the people who say they are very good multitaskers are actually the worst multitaskers of the group. So no one is actually a great multitasker, but the people who say they are generally the people who actually perform worse on multitasking skill tests.
Right.
But again, the real crucial issue is that no one is in fact a really good multitasker. So at the end of the day, once you get interrupted, you have to find the quickest way to record that issue and get back on task. Because as soon as you get drawn into another issue, just think of it as I've just costed myself 23 minutes.
Right. So as a business grows, why is it so important to have time blocking?
Well, from our experience that we weren't as regimented as when it was just me in the business, and then it was just me and you in the business. There was only so many times that we could interrupt each other.
Right.
But now there's 10 of us in the firm, we can be consistently interrupted all day. It happens, you need to have time for solitary work where you're focused on that solitary work, and then time for collaborative work too, where you have that groupthink working for you. But the problem is people are doing if one person wants to do collaborative work at one time and someone else wants to do collaborative work at a separate time, well, guess what? Now everyone's getting interrupted at all times of the day. So as the business gets bigger, it gets even more important to have that time blocking built in. You can keep everybody in the team on the same direction, and they just know the boundaries of when am I interrupting focused work, and when am I maximizing groupthink and using the resources around me.
Right. So what kinds of things do you time block?
Everything. You need to time block everything, and that's really the key. You just need to look through what are all the functions of the business. So you work straight from you need to prospect, you need to market, you need to do sales, you need to actually be on the tools, so to speak. When are you actually doing the work? It's a big part of the time block, but that needs to be in there too. When are you going to do your recruiting? When are you going to do the interviews? When are you going to meet with clients? If you have to give sales presentations, when do those get done? If I have to run payroll, when does that happen? If I have to go pick up supplies, when does that happen? So, really, you have to look at every function of the business, and they should be time blocked. That's the most efficient way to deal with them.
I notice on our calendar that you even time block travel time.
When
you have to go out to a client's office and make sure there's that time getting there and coming back to the office.
Yeah, it's true, and I hate to say it, but it's happened before, and we've had appointments on the schedule, and we look at the location, and it's right in our policies. It's like if there's travel time involved, it has to be specifically identified. People got to be clear and realistic about this is a realistic time to to do the travel time, or else we end up with a 3:00 meeting that ends at 3:00, and we're supposed to be across town at 3:01 somehow.
Yeah,
so it doesn't really work out so well. So
So how do you go about setting up a time block?
So you start with go back to all of those functions in the business. So just go through everything that you actually do. Try to list them out. That might sound daunting. There's probably not that many. You're probably talking about a dozen functions per person. Maybe a little more, a little less, depending on the industry and the type of business in. So the first start is actually looking at all of the different functions that you have to do. Then you have to maybe drill into those functions and decide which of those functions are daily functions, which of those functions are weekly functions, and probably which of the functions are monthly functions. There's usually 3 types of tasks when you really boil down to what happens in a business. Maybe there's some annual ones, but I would say 99% of the tasks are either daily, weekly, or monthly. And if you could deal with them on those times, that's what's going to happen. So you drill into listing all those tasks, establishing if they're daily, weekly, or monthly. And I prefer to come up with 4 different templates. The month has 4 weeks. Most of all, there's week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and you might do some things every day, and there's some things that you do on the the first week of the month and the third week of the month, but not after that. So you really got to establish your daily, weekly, monthly tasks. Which ones are they? And you lay them out on a calendar. That's the first step of getting the time blocking together.
And so do certain tasks work better at certain times in your day?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Denise, you kind of just self-identified it, and we tend to operate at a higher capacity. We're smarter first thing in the day.
Right.
And so your more complex tasks, your more important tasks should generally be grouped in the morning. So if you're a plumber, and you have to if you have to be on the tools and you get paid to pump out a project, you probably should be on the job site first thing. and then maybe schedule your estimates, towards the end of the day. And in our business, we actually need to be doing the projects in the morning. We get paid flat fee. We don't get paid by the hour, so we need to be as efficient as possible. So really, sometimes clients think that the meeting is most important, but really, by the time the meeting comes, we've already done the heavy lifting. We've done the calculations. At that point, we're really just explaining our findings and finding out any new variables for any future projects. So, with us, it's making sure that we have the project work actually done, earlier in the day and meet with the clients later in the day. It's much easier to talk about work that we've already processed rather than get very technical into problem solving after you've spent half a day meeting with clients. That can be a little bit more of a taxing activity, one that we simply it would just take us longer to do it the other way around.
Yeah. Right. So is there a certain amount of time you should block off for each task?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's very industry specific, but I think what you really have to boil down in your industry is what block of time, for a particular task is actually going to let you complete it. That's the ideal. Now, that might not be practical every time because, we know very well we have projects that last months, not hours. Right. So your ideal is a time block that's, useful and actually either finishing tasks or B, making significant progress on the task of the stop and start isn't really a big deal because again, the stop and start costs you efficiency. And, we went through this in our firm. We started out with those 1 hour tasks and we realized that, a lot of those 1 hour time blocks were really not long enough for us to really drill into the issue. And even all of our client meetings now, they're 2 hour time blocks on our schedule, and even if the client doesn't need 2 hours, we can get so much further on the task itself afterwards with completing what our actions items are. Sometimes we can just knock them out right after the meeting if we have that 2 hour time block. Right. Whereas when we had 1 hour time blocks, sometimes we had to squish the meeting down and cut the client off. And certainly by the time we got into more complex tasks, by the time we understood what we were doing, we never really moved the ball down the field when the time blocks are a little shorter. So again, it's very industry specific, but what you need to look at is what's a long enough amount of time that you can actually start making progress on a task and significant progress on a task rather than simply getting back in and identifying what the task is and then switching all over again.
Right. So where exactly do you put your tasks or your time blocks?
In your calendar. So pre-populate your calendar. I mean, if you're a business owner, you should have your ideal calendar blocked out, a year in advance. If you're an established business owner, you're comfortable with your time blocks, you should know what you're doing this time next year. And that sounds crazy to some people, but we see it a lot in we do a lot of medical professionals, and they're very good at taking appointments, and they know exactly when they see patients, and it lets the organized doctor can see 80 patients in a day, and the disorganized doctor sees 20. And so it's being really important that you have it in a calendar. It's all laid out. So when a client asks and they say, I want to have a meeting time, there's no ambiguity in our firm. We know exactly when our next 10 available meeting slots are. And we protect those, right? Because that's the most efficient way for us to ultimately complete the work for the client. So we open up our calendar, and there it is. This is the time we're going to do our project work. Here's when we're going to meet our clients. Here's when we're going to do our administration time. Here's when we're going to collaborate. It's all laid out for us. It's one calendar. It's right in your calendar. We can pull it right up on our phones. We see it. We don't have time blocks over here and then a calendar over here that we're trying to make look like this. We just put those time blocks in the calendar, and then when the person presents itself, we put it over top of that block. Right. So it's already there.
So how often should you deviate from your time blocks?
Yeah, I think when you deviate from your time blocks, ultimately you should be working towards a schedule that you deviate from once or twice a year. Not something that you deviate from. I feel like some business owners are deviating from the schedule once or twice per day. And that's hard to do. I mean, but ultimately you should be deviating from your time block for, things like you got into a car accident or you got summoned to jury duty or something like that. They're things that are really out of your control, right? There can be a potential for entrepreneurs. They always want to replace appointments with themselves for the next deal. As soon as a lead comes in, they want to drop it and pursue that lead rather than work on the business. But that has an issue because you never end up working on the business, and you fill up to your current capacity, but you're never going to actually increase your capacity, make your services better, make your demand better, make your team better. So you got to be really careful and just say, is this really worth me deviating from my schedule?
So what would you say to a client of ours that might say that time blocking is too restrictive?
Yeah, ultimately I think time blocking is, you need to shift your mindset, and when you truly understand the issue, time blocking is what actually sets you free. Time blocking is a thing that allows you to, when you actually close your business for the day, when you're done your business hours, you're actually truly done your business hours. And you can trust the schedule, because you can trust that every function, from sales to production to follow-up to administration, there's a time to deal with it, and it's a realistic amount of time. So when you close your business for the day, when you schedule off a vacation, you can trust that things are going to get taken care of. That's your freedom. You can make as much with the best schedule you have, with a disciplined schedule. The disciplined schedule actually equals the personal free time. And so it's you can either run around trying to deal with all these issues whenever they crop up, or you can stick to a schedule, and if you can get that schedule good enough, you actually can maximize your free time, as opposed to, now I'm taking this work home for me because I never really had a plan on how to deal with this work. And sometimes then your work comes up at the least opportune times in your personal life.
So how do you think accountants use the time blocks of their clients?
Yeah, well, when we're always doing our business plans, and I tell clients that the projections. So when we're looking at projections on how a client's business is going to do, and I'm talking about what your income statement, what your profit and loss is going to look like on a month-to-month basis moving forward, there are two items that probably affect our projections more than every other consideration. Number one is, what are their marketing initiatives? Nothing happens until somebody sells something. You got to have a lead. But then the next thing that has to happen is we have to understand what that business owner's schedule looks like. And here's the example. You come with that, we have a general contractor, and he comes in and he wants to, double his business. He wants to go from $500,000 a year to $1 million a year. And he has a great marketing plan. He has enough, Google AdWords in. He has enough referrals that are going to come in. He's attending enough trade shows. He's going to get the leads. Okay, so we got the leads coming, but that's only half the equation. Now, in order for him to double his revenue, now all of a sudden he doesn't need to do 10 estimates a week. Now he needs to do 20 estimates a week. Okay, so you have the leads coming in. Where is it in your calendar that you're going to do 20 estimates a week? And now, once you have those jobs, where is it in your calendar that you're actually going to follow up on those jobs? So we need to really drill down and see, are these projections congruent with the business owner's schedule? And if they're not congruent with the business owner's schedule, who is the person in the business? Who else can do the estimates? Who else can do the site visits? Do we actually have a realistic way to deal with twice the amount of work? It's great to say that, we have a marketing plan, but now we have to book the clients and we have to execute on those deals. So the business owner's schedule, believe it or not, I go through it all the time, and sometimes bankers ask me, Josh, why do you have the business owner's time blocks in their schedule? I said, there's probably no single bigger fact that's going to drive the projections of the business. And the bank is asking me for projections, but for me to give the projections without knowing, when the business owner is going to work on each of these tasks, it tends to be guesswork. The science behind it is actually tie the task realistically to the time blocks and tie the performance. So yeah, thanks very much. I think that's what we have for today, and we look forward to episode number 2. If you have any questions, we'd love to see your comments below. Thanks very much.